G'day, my name's Brian from BsianTech. Hope you're doing very well, keeping healthy and safe. I'm doing pretty good on this side of the desk. Today we are going to look at the Lenovo Legion Pro 7i. This is Gen 8 and it houses the new 13th Gen Intel Core. Whew, they are quick processors. And also the Nvidia Geforce RTX 40 series graphics. Whew, again, that is quick. This thing is a piece of a computer. And I can definitely tell you this is a 16-inch gaming laptop from the RGB lights that's on the keyboard and also the RGB light front bar. Now, unlike the previous model, they actually had RGB lights on the sides and also the exhaust. This year's model, they actually went with less RGB lights. Now, for a person who is more business and commercial, I am not an RGB person, but it is not growing. But for me, this is a good amount of RGB lights for me. The previous one had a little bit more, but as a gamer, I'm sure you actually like more RGB lights. But that's just personal taste, just to let you know. But I have to say that this year's model, RGB lights, I find a little bit more crisp and also better quality than the previous year. It's just a little observation I found. Now, we also have a massive chassis redesign completely than the previous model, and we'll actually see how that fares in the thermal test later in the video. And we also have a new display, and again we'll see how that fares in later in this video. Now, one of the big things with the chassis is the hinge. Now, I've read about on the previous model that had a little bit of complaints about the hinge having issues and stuff like that. Now, this is a new hinge here. The previous one was one hinge design. This one is a two hinge design. Now, I know one hinge design is a little bit more sturdy, but I also find that this two hinge design is a nice, proven track record one. Now, I don't know how that will go over long duration of prior and also as I've only got this for a short period of time. I definitely love to hear from owners of this new Gen 8 to see how that fares. Definitely put a comment below on your experience of how this new hinge has Lenovo actually fixed the hinge problems, or it still is a problem. Now, it still can do the 180 degree, which is really nice. I love that option here, and I might as well quickly do the one finger test for you guys to have a look at. So it is as smooth as. This is really nice. That's a nice opening feel. And I'll just do the wiggle test, and that's actually clamping very nice. It's actually not letting go. So that is, so far, the new hinge is looking good. I love the actual amount of pressure it does, and it's holding, clamping very well. So, and I might as well just do the rugged test on the keyboard. Now, that is pretty sturdy on this, and it is all pretty much aluminium on the top. It's got a nice feel of this, and aluminium on the side, and also the palm rest as well. So, over the build quality on this Legion 7 Pro is great on this, so I definitely love it here. Now, I am going to put timestamps along the video so I can skip to a different section that you may be interested to save you time. So definitely hope that helps you guys out. I just want to make a special mention about the exhaust. Now, there are two side exhausts and also two exhausts from the rear. Now, the two side exhausts, when this is in gaming or high performance, or when this computer is on load, I was expecting some hot air coming from the sides, but they actually don't. They're actually quite cool, and the direction of the airflow is actually pointing back towards this way, so diagonal backwards, which is really good, because if you had your mouses or gaming mouses on either side, left or right, it's not going to have the hot air or any sort of air blowing to your hand, which is really nice. And most of the hot air is actually flowing through to the two rear exhausts going outwards on the side. So that's good. And the side exhausts are more of the, I would say, cooler air. There is a little warm, but not much at all. It's more cooler air than air, but you definitely feel the air coming out of the rear exhaust. The display is a 16-inch IPS display with very narrow bezels on all four sides, and has an aspect ratio of 16:10 with a maximum brightness rating of 500 nits. But I managed to measure it in the unit that I had was 546 nits, so that's definitely nice to see that it does go brighter than what it's rated at. It also has a matte finish, which makes it very nice to work outdoors with that less glare and reflections. And the display also has a refresh rate of up to 240 Hertz, which is fantastic for that fast response for FPS games, and is also nice for other games in general. And when I performed the UFO ghosting test, I only found very slight ghosting. I actually found that very acceptable. I think the results did pretty well. Measuring the color game coverage of the display, it resulted with 99% sRGB coverage, 72% Adobe RGB coverage, and 75% DCI-P3 coverage. This is recording from the 1080p webcam from the Legion Pro 7. This is the video and the audio unedited, so you can hear and see what the quality of the webcam is like. Now, I'm currently at a cafe and it's relatively noisy, so I'd love to hear what your thoughts of the noise suppression and how you hear my voice clearly. And it's not like a lot of light in here at the moment. There are two speakers located on the bottom front on either side of the laptop. They are from Harman, and when I tested the maximum volume of the speakers, it managed to measure a peak of 85.9 decibels. Now I consider this on the medium scale of compared to other laptops. For volume wise, probably the lower medium. Now they could probably do a lot better in terms of loudness, but this is a gaming laptop, probably on more working indoors, so I can forgive it for that. Now as for the sound quality of the speakers, they do have a bit of bass, but not like a massive amount of bass. They have decent clarity. We are balanced more to the mids and highs, more closer to the highs, and have okay reverb and acoustics for a 2-speaker system. But definitely I love to see a 4-speaker system, and we do have space for a 4-way speaker system in a 16-inch laptop like this. The power adapter it comes with is a 330 watt power adapter. Now this has been increased from the previous model, which came with a 300 watt. Now, the extra requirements is more than likely due to the 13th gen Intel core, and also from the Geforce RTX 40 series card, the extra requirements of power, as they are more power hungry, even though it has an increase in power, but the actual power brick physical size is about 30% smaller. The Legion Pro 7i either comes with an 80 or a 99.9 watt hour battery. Now the one I tested had the 99.9 watt hour battery, and I managed to get 3 hours and 46 minutes in the modern office battery life test in PC Mark 10, 1 hour and 6 minutes for gaming, and 4 hours and 38 minutes for video playback in the Procom battery life test. Comparing with other gaming laptops, this is pretty much on par with just slightly above average. But considering that this has an i9 with RTX 4080, which is probably the most powerful components I've had on this channel in a laptop, I'll probably just bump up the result to above average. So now we're going to test out the USB-C port at the back of the Legion Pro 7i. Now this is a USB 3.2 Gen 2 USB-C port. It's not a Thunderbolt 4 port, just to be aware of. Now from this tool, we're reading that this USB-C port is able to give a power delivery of 15 watts. So if you connect another device, it's able to charge that device up to maximum capacity of 15 watts. So it does provide quick charge or fast charge to, say, for example, a mobile phone. Now as for how much this USB-C port can have charge, so I'll just put this tool back into monitoring mode. Now this USB-C has 100 watts coming out of it to charge as well. So I'm just going to plug this in and it'll pass through the power and we'll monitor it. And we can see that it can provide up to 92 watts. So 92 watts is being pulled into the Legion Pro 7i. So this is basically, this USB-C port is able to take on 100 watts, I would say, capacity, but we're only doing up to a maximum capacity of 92 watts. So it won't give you like the absolute best performance or put into performance mode, but at least it can slow down the power drain of the laptop. And also if you're just doing very low end work or even just idling or just office type of work, it will be able to charge a little bit of the battery. Even with 92 watts, there's quite a bit of power there. And now we test the side USB-C port. Now this is a Thunderbolt 4 port, and the tool's reading that it is able to provide a power delivery of 15 watts to other devices. Again, so quick charge or maybe a device or mobile phone. That's great to see. Now I'll just put the tool into monitoring mode, and we'll see if we can actually charge this laptop through this Thunderbolt 4 port. So I'll just plug that in. Let's have a look. Again, it's 100 watts going through this way, and we can definitely see that it is not able to charge the Legion Pro 7i using this side Thunderbolt 4 port. Very interesting there. The weight of the Legion Pro 7i is 2.65 kilos plus the 330 watt power adapter becomes a combined weight of 3.69 kilos you might be carrying around with you. Look at the temperatures and fan noise. When I took my measurement, the ambient temperature in the room was 21 degrees Celsius. And just to give you a reference point, the average hand is anywhere between 34 or 35 degrees Celsius at this sort of room temperature. So I took my base measurement when the computer was idle and the hottest area on the keyboard measured a maximum of 47 degrees Celsius. As for the fan noise, it had a maximum of 36 decibels, and the average internal core temperature was 53 degrees Celsius. Then I put 20% load, so that's pretty much average use. So that's tasks like office productivity work, surfing web, streaming videos, and the hottest area on the keyboard measured a maximum of 51 degrees Celsius. And as for the fan noise, it had a maximum of 40 decibels, and the average internal core temperature was 56 degrees Celsius. Then I put 50% load on computer, and the hottest area on the keyboard measured a maximum of 52 degrees Celsius. And as for the fan, it spun all the way up to a maximum of 44 decibels, and the average internal core temperature was 66 degrees Celsius. Then I put 100% load on the computer, and the hottest area on the keyboard measured a maximum of 57 degrees Celsius. And as for the fan noise, it stayed at 44 decibels, and the average internal core temperature was 60 degrees Celsius. Then I put the computer in performance thermal mode in the Lenovo software to unleash its maximum performance and power, and the hottest area on the keyboard measured it still at 57 degrees Celsius. And as for the fan noise, it spun all the way to a maximum of 52 decibels, and the average internal core temperature was 70 degrees Celsius. Also measured the bottom back cover in this performance mode, and the hottest area on the back cover measured a maximum of 56 degrees Celsius. Interesting enough, seeing the results, the idle temperature of this new 13th Gen i9 is quite hot at idle, but once it gets going, it actually does a pretty decent job in keeping the temperatures down. Now, Lenovo does seems to have a cap on it over a long period of time, which is what I do for these thermal tests, and it does bring down the performance, as you'll see in the stability test. But in the burst speed, you do see the actual processor ramp all up to 90 degrees Celsius, and then quickly comes back down to an average around about 60 to 70 degrees Celsius. And you'll see the actual temperatures of the keyboard also match it at the performance level. Now, overall, I do think that the actual thermals on the actual computer is actually decent and also not that annoying. I actually find even just typing on the keyboard while it's running at 100% load is very usable still, but definitely I would not be putting this on my lap. Let's have a look at the stability performance of the new i9 13900HX processor. Look at Intel website reports this processor has a maximum turbo boost of 5.4 GHz. That's for the performance cores, and for the efficiency cores, you're looking at 3.9 GHz at its maximum. And Windows reports has a base clock speed of 2.2 GHz. Now, I've got this computer running on pretty much hopefully 100% load for the last 2 hours, and we can see that all the cores are pretty much maxed out on load, and we've got the memory as well as storage and also the graphics as well. Now, looking at the average pretty much speed of this processor, it's averaging anywhere between 2.6 to about 2.9 gigahertz. So it is above the base clock speeds, which is great. So we're not getting that crazy thermal throttling, but we do get a bit of turbo throttling. Now, I've got the average internal core temperature at around about 70 degrees Celsius, and we do have this set in performance thermal mode in the Lenovo Legion software. And I do have to mention that at the start, when this is pretty much before it runs on load, it will actually boost up to about 4.6 gigahertz to about 3 gigahertz in the first 30 seconds of load. After around about 30 seconds, you'll see this quickly just drive down to around about 2.6 to about 2.9 gigahertz, which is where it's stable at after about 30 seconds. It pretty much doesn't really move from there. After that, you can't really boost it up anymore. I've tried to move some actual load, but I just can't make it load because it is pretty much 100% load at the moment, and it doesn't really go past this 70 degrees. So it's something either safeguarded by Lenovo, have put into this Legion Pro 7, or it could be just something that the i9s just doesn't really like to move. I don't know. Traditionally, the i9s do run quite hot, and they don't really like to run. They're more made for burst speed than anything else, but running for long duration times, the i9s are not well known for doing long periods of time. Here's the results of the benchmarks performed on the Legion Pro 7i Gen 8. This one's configured with an i9 13900HX processor with 32 gigs of RAM and two 1TB SSD, and the Nvidia RTX 4080 graphics. These are results for PassMark, Citybench R23, PCMark, 3DMark, Crystal Disk Mark, Geekbench 5, Procon Office, Procon Photo Edit, Procon Video Edit, Pugin Photoshop, Pugin Lightroom, Pugin Premiere Pro, Pugin After Effects, Pugin DaVinci Resolve, Blender, Furmark, Luxmark, Octane Bench, Eugene Engine, and Spec View Pref. And some gaming benchmarks like Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Far Cry 6, Cyberpunk 2077, and F1 2022. Let's have a quick look at the internals. First off, we've got the 99.9 watt-hour battery at the bottom here, and the battery connector is right here if you need to disconnect the battery if you're working on the laptop, or you need to troubleshoot some power issues. And on bottom right is start off with the first M.2 slot SSD, and above that is the Bluetooth Wi-Fi WAN card here, and it is hidden behind a heat shield. I've just removed it just so you can see it. And then we've got a second one on the left hand side. Again, it is able to take on the 2280 format M.2. And then underneath a heat shield like this one here, it is two SODIMM slots for your memory. And then that's pretty much all there is to it. Overall, I'm blown by the performance from this Lenovo Legion Pro 7i. It is absolutely crazy, out of the ballpark for the performance here. It is really quick, it's really shockingly quick. And I just wish it had a little bit more higher performance of a long duration of time for the tasks like computation or things like that, as this could use for that. It's just a good performance for that. But I do know the i9s are traditionally just very good at high burst speed for high clock speed for those short duration, and gaming is one of those burst speed sort of applications. So I can forgive it, it's in the right market for it, but geez, the performance of this, whew, absolute fantastic. Now, as for the speakers, it does have good two-way speaker system, but I just wish it had a four-way speaker system, just because there's enough room for it, and to actually have more balance of the mid, highs, and lows. Just that little balance just makes it, give it that little, and also a little bit more extra volume as well. Now, the actual keyboard, it's fantastic. I do love the RGB lights. I think it's more about the quality of the RGB lights is what I'm actually standing by compared to the previous year's version. It does have less RGB lights, but I just find the actual quality of the RGB lights a little bit better than the previous year. Now, as for the ports, we do get pretty much the same similar amount of ports, but you can charge the computer using the USB-C, but now you don't get the full power, but at least you can do on emergency power just to make the battery last a little bit longer, even though you can't charge the batteries with the USB-C, as it needs way more power for these more power hungry components. And as for the display, it is a very decent style. I think the display is absolutely fantastic. I like the new design of this chassis as well, especially the exhaust handling of the heat. Whew, definitely a great thing. Now, I hope you find this video informative or enjoyed it. If you did, even support my channel, smash that like button and share this video as well. It does help me out. And as always, imperfections in life makes it beautiful and interesting. And I'll see you next video.